You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.
I also saw that Troy Tulowitzki was here this weekend, except for he was taking in a baseball game. Yeah, we'll get to the results on the field now. The Yankees squandered an opportunity to really capitalize on engaging all of us in this playoff race and making us believe that they were indeed a front runner to gain one of those spots. But even more interesting than that was Troy Tulowitzki sitting in the stands watching the Yankees take on the Blue Jays yesterday at the stadium. It was an odd sight. And I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, Amari Stoudemire, after the Knicks had been eliminated by the Heat, a couple series after that, Amari Stoudemire was in the crowd, sitting courtside at a Miami Heat game. And I just thought, that looks awful. You know, it's one thing if you're Mark McGwire at the World Series in 1998 and you're being honored and you throw out the first pitch and then a foul ball happens to get hit near you and you grab it, reaching over the stands. And it's like a heartwarming moment because at the time we just thought Mark was big and strong. We didn't realize why he was hitting all those wonderful home runs. That's different because he was being honored there. Yeah, Amari Stoudemire was not being honored at American Airlines Arena and in South Beach. And even though his team was eliminated, I thought, that's just a bad look. Like, my team wasn't good enough to play here, but at least I have a great seat to watch basketball at this level. I just didn't like that at all. But I really was more confused by what I saw yesterday from Troy Tulowitzki. Now, as somebody who would love to see him in pinstripes, there's a part of me that's flattered. Troy Tulowitzki is so intent on making this happen somewhere down the road that he decided to go take in a game. He's a huge Derek Jeter fan, wears number 2 because of the captain, and maybe he just wanted to catch Derek Jeter in his final season while he still had the chance. That, to me, is flattering in some ways. But it also is wrong. Troy Tulowitzki's team yesterday was playing a game in Pittsburgh. They were in action, and he's somewhere else catching a different baseball game because he's hurt. That would be like late night with Letterman is running reruns, and Paul Schaefer is in the audience at the Tonight Show because it's live that night. I mean, that's not a good look. I don't think Dave would be happy about that. Just like I don't think the Rockies should be happy with Troy Tulowitzki. Imagine me, I'm on vacation, and let's say our shows have live studio audiences, and Stephen A. is still working. But I've decided with my vacation day, I would like to go to the Francesa show and sit in the studio audience while Stephen A. is working. I mean, that's not a good look. I can understand my employer being unhappy with me. And there was a lack of awareness, I think, on Troy Tulowitzki's part to be there. I'm going to ask John Flaherty about that. I did Yankees pre-post with him yesterday. He'll join me at 1:30. We'll get his perspective on that. But I just thought that doesn't look good for him. And it's one of those situations where it's the cheater and the cheatee kind of, right? If you are the person who, let's just say in this case, the girl is after and she wants to be with you, but she has a boyfriend, and you're like, I mean, I love her. I'm into her. Sure, like, this is great. And you don't really think about, but what about what she's doing to the incumbent guy? Like, because at some point, if she was mine, I would then be the incumbent. And would I be treated like that? You know, that's kind of how you might feel about Troy Tulowitzki. Like, it's flattering from a Yankee standpoint that Troy Tulowitzki is so into this team. He's already, in roundabout ways, said he would love to be the replacement for Derek Jeter. And he's so into it that he'll sit in the stands and watch the New York Yankees while his team is playing elsewhere. But then you also think of it, well, okay, but what if you were the incumbent team and he was doing that to you elsewhere? Now, ultimately, does it make me want the Yankees to not go after Troy Tulowitzki? No, it doesn't have that profound an effect, not at all. I would like to have him. But I still thought it was a bad look. And people make fun of me for this. And I understand it because it's a little bit ridiculous. But I love doing the WWJD, what would Jeter do? Because I feel like in general, when it comes to those kind of decisions, there's a reason why Derek Jeter has never gotten into trouble here in this city. It's because he makes pretty smart decisions at moments when he could otherwise expose himself to controversy or to criticism. He knows how to avoid that. And so I like the WWJD. And I think about what happened yesterday, and I think, well, WWJD, what would Derek Jeter do? What would Jeter do? And you got that answer. After the game, he was asked, would you ever sit in the stands of another team's game like that? And all Derek had to say was, what do you think? Because we know there's no chance. And I'm not saying that Derek Jeter is the only bar of a person being a good citizen that we can measure, or a person having good judgment that we can measure. But in that kind of decision, yeah, I actually think probably leaning closer to what the captain would do is the right way to steer you. So I really found it strange, and I thought it was a poor decision on Tulowitzki's part. Now, that wouldn't be any kind of reason to keep me from going after him if I'm the Yankees. And I would very much like him. But there are some interesting layers about whether or not you do go after Troy Tulowitzki. Like how horrible the splits are between home and road in his career. They are maddening how much better he has been at home in his career versus on the road. Now, he's still been a very good player on the road. He's had an OPS that's still over 800, 818. But at Coors Field, that OPS is an absolutely tremendous 962. Okay, this year, the splits are drastic. But you want to do career batting averages? On the road, he is a 274 hitter. At home, he's at 323. That's a big difference. That's a really big difference between home and road for Tulowitzki. That's a difference that also plays out in on-base percentage, where he is nearly 400 at home and under 350 on the road. And so his numbers don't necessarily translate to a guy who's going to walk right in and be the all-star that he's been in Colorado. We know that's often the case. I had thought they took care of it with the humidor. What happened? It went away? Because I thought for a long time that the humidor was the reason why we never had to worry about home and away splits anymore. But apparently we do. And when you look at this year more specifically, it is drastic. Troy Tulowitzki's hitting .417 at home and .257 on the road. So I don't know that you want to just give up everything for him. However, would I inquire? Would I try and go after him? Yes, because he is a star. And the Yankees will need someone magnetic when Derek Jeter's gone, because really the only magnetic player in pinstripes that is healthy at this moment pitches the eighth inning. That's Dellin Betances. They don't have another one of those guys. Masahiro Tanaka is that guy, but you may not have him all of next year if he ends up needing Tommy John. So putting someone like Tulowitzki in pinstripes would be very beneficial. But if you think he's going to come in and immediately be a .330 hitter with 35 home runs, hold on a second, because the numbers show us Coors Field has been very friendly to him. This year, 14 homers at home, 7 on the road, and he's played more road games. You heard the difference in batting average, .417 to .257. And it's just weird. It is very weird that a guy with 7 years left on his contract would already trying to be paving the way out of there, talking openly about wanting to be the replacement to Derek Jeter, and then attending a game in the stands, visible to all, and certainly not naive enough to believe he wouldn't be seen, while his team is in action in another city. It's just strange.
You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.
The Giants have challenged Eli Manning to complete 70% of his passes this year. He's a 58% career completion percentage guy. Oh, that's a fun sentence. And we know that the others in history are, let's see if I can guess these right, John. Drew Brees, Steve Young, Joe Montana, and is the fourth, is it Ken Anderson who's the fourth?
Very good.
Oh, baby! That is not bad.
Pretty good at your football trivia.
Man. Pulling Ken Anderson out of there. That is not bad at all. So John, who was it? The offensive coordinator who issued it to him, or the quarterback's coach?
No, it wasn't Bob McAdoo. Kidding. McAdoo is his. Now, actually, his first name is escaping me at the moment.
Ben, I think.
Ben McAdoo.
Well,
it was Danny.
You really want to call him Bob McAdoo?
I do.
The same way I wanted to call John Flaherty Jack Flaherty yesterday. I don't know if it's a Kennedy thing. I have no idea. But yes, but it was not the McAdoo fella.
No, it's the new quarterback coach, his position coach, Danny Langsdorf.
Okay.
Thinks he can go from 58.5%, which is his career percentage, to 70%.
All right. Well, you know what? I like that challenge. I do think Eli seems very stimulated by the new offense. I'm excited to see him in it. I know Victor Cruz is excited about the new offense as well. I don't mind that challenge. You know, last time we saw Eli have one of those personal kind of challenges heading into a season that was publicized, we saw him win a Super Bowl when he claimed he was an elite quarterback on the Michael Kay show. That was the last time we sort of had that moment. Now, last year as a team, the Giants had that countdown clock in the locker room, and that didn't go so well. That clock came down after week 6. But I kind of like the Giants setting that goal for Eli Manning, because why not? He should be better than a 58% completion passer. How do you say that? How do you say that smoothly, by the way? A 58% completion passer? Or, I mean, if we want to just say it accurately, we say he should have better than a career completion percentage of 58%. But I feel like there's got to be a quicker way to say that, you know? I'll tell you what, should that be how we do the giveaway today? You guys come up with the quickest way you can describe somebody's career completion percentage, all right? Whoever can come up with a good acronym or a good short phrase for it, NFL lingo, that's how we're giving this away. You will win a 4-pack of tickets to the Baseball Hall of Fame. So with the Hall of Fame induction fresh in our minds, this is your chance to win tickets to the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. Be there to check out the plaques of the Hall's 6 newest members. For tickets, call 877-729-9028 or go to baseballhall.org. You guys tweet at me, at Ryan Ruocco, RyanRuocco, with what's the quickest way to say that? You know, just how do you quickly say he's a career completion percentage passer of this? Like, turn it into a noun, you know? Please. Just tell me. However we can say it so it comes off the tongue smoothly. I'm in that business, and I need your help here. And just, you know, a little more water is not going to get it done. So tweet at me, at Ryan Ruocco, and you can win tickets to the Hall of Fame, which, by the way, yesterday I did think was a great day for baseball. I was engaged into every single one of those 6 speeches. It was very entertaining. I thought Tom Glavine was great. I thought Joe Torre was great. This is how I describe Joe Torre. I'm a younger guy. There's no secret to any of you. I'm 27 years old. Joe Torre, to me, for anybody who grew up in the 90s, he was kind of like our surrogate uncle. You know, you just looked at Joe Torre as kind of like, oh, it's Happy Joe. Almost like the Santa Claus of the baseball generation that grew up at that time in New York, because all he did was bring them presents. They just happened to be World Series trophies under the tree every single year, 4 out of 5 times. You know, he felt like that guy, the guy who could do no wrong, say no wrong, knew how to put out any fire that was starting to burn. And I loved getting to see him yesterday, be honored as he should, hear that speech. And one of the things I loved about it was I loved him reliving, and I know it was almost just done in a very elemental way, but I loved hearing him relive the big moments and the big players of each of the World Series wins the Yankees had, and then their ALCS wins as well. I just found that to be very interesting. You know, because you're reliving it with him then. When you hear the manager, I almost had to sit Paul O'Neill. And then he extends and makes that catch, robbing Luis Polonia in the gap in Game 5 of the 96 World Series. You know, almost had to sit him, but his hamstring held up just enough to rob Polonia and keep that game from being tied. Remember, there's a runner on third with 1 out in that inning. after Andy came out for Wetland. Just hearing him go through that, it was fun to relive it, and I loved getting to see Joe Torre in that element. And, I also thought this part of it was one really cool message from Joe Torre.
You had to make stops along the way. You had to fail along the way. I got fired 3 times. That's in the category of failure. The only way you're going to learn, the only way you're going to get better is to experience setbacks and just get yourself up, dust yourself off, and move on.
See, I love that. Fired 3 times. Think about your job and the prospects of being fired 3 times. That is incredibly daunting, having to deal with that. That would discourage you from ever working in that profession again. If I got fired 3 times as a radio host, I don't know that I would go back and try it a 4th. But there he was, getting that 4th chance and coming through and ending up the 2nd winningest manager in Yankees history. Not Reds history, not Rockies history, Yankees history. Only Joe McCarthy with more wins. But think about that. Because sometimes, it's funny, I've talked about this with Hubie Brown, who's one of the best storytellers of anybody that I have ever met. And he tells a story about what his dad used to always tell him, how you're always just a half step from the street. And it's something that should humble you, and it's also something that gives you confidence, because sometimes you're fired and it's not your fault. And then sometimes, you are going to be fired even when things are going good, so don't get too big on your britches. And that sort of Joe Torre's story reminded me of Hubie's in the sense that, look, he got knocked down 3 times. Didn't mean, though, that he wasn't a great manager. He just hadn't had the right circumstances yet. When he finally got them, he had a whole lot of success. I love seeing him go into the hall yesterday, and I loved that reminder from him.
Thanks for listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Be sure to listen weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.
Jerome, let me start with you with what we were just talking about, and that's the Jets and this bravado. At the same time now, we've had D. Milliner say he believes he's the best corner in the NFL. We've had Geno Smith say by the end of the season he expects to be a top 5 corner. And we've also had Rex Ryan say the Patriots should be afraid of them, and Calvin Pace say we're the best defense. It feels like they have their bravado back. How do you evaluate hearing all of those things come in a flurry?
It's laughable, because you have to understand, where it comes from. Rex Ryan, that's his philosophy. That's how he coaches. So you have to understand, you take everything, all of that with a grain of salt. The only thing in there that I could look at and say, okay, there is some merit, some possibility to that, as Calvin Pace said, their defense could be one of the best in the league. I really believe that defense could be one of the best in the league. But all the individual prognosticators, I don't believe in any of that, because, for instance, D. Milliner, he's got to prove himself. I think he's on the bubble of you saying him being a good cornerback, not necessarily the best cornerback. So, he's got some proving to do before he can step out there and make that statement. And then, when you look at your quarterback situation, there's people that believe that the backup quarterback should be the starting quarterback. So, when you have those kind of question marks, and guys are still making the comments, you got to laugh at them and say, you know what, prove it. And you can make that statement if you've done something in this league. None of those guys have done anything in the league to warrant any type of statements like that.
So, and I think, Jerome, I'd agree with you as far as the statements can be a little bit silly, but do they have any kind of negative, tangible effect on the Jets?
No, they don't have they have a possibility of being negative down the road. Let's say week 8, D. Milliner is getting, he's getting hammered. They bring that up and they start pointing it out, and now you've got to, you got to speak on it and comment on it when you really don't want to. So the possibility of those coming back to haunt you are there, but realistically, once you get into the season, all those, predictions go out the window. Because, a piece of that is you should have that mindset. You should believe that you're the best team in the NFL. That's what, that's what the beginning of the season is for. Everyone's optimistic that they've got a chance to win the Super Bowl. But the reality is, once the season starts, you get into the meat of the season, the pretenders from the contenders pretty quickly.
We're talking with Jerome Bettis on the Lexus of Route 10 hotline. And, Jerome, my argument would be, I understand it's not accurate necessarily. I understand it could be a little bit silly. But I also like the expectations it gives this team, where it's, okay, now we're giving ourselves something to live up to. We're not going to, 8-8 is not going to cut it this year. We're going to make sure to back up our words because we don't want to sound silly.
But they're not saying that. They're not saying we're going to be better at football team. They're talking individual issues. So it's a big difference. That's what I said. I agree with Calvin Pace. Him saying that they believe they should have the best defense. I agree with that. You know why? Because last year they came on strong. Defense played well at times. And so, yeah, I would, okay, I go with that. But the individual statements is where I have a problem. And if they came out and said, hey, we're a Super Bowl caliber football team, that's something totally different. But they didn't say that. That's not what was being said. And that's where the issue comes in for me.
We're talking with Jerome Bettis on the Lexus of Route 10 Celebrity Hotline here. Stephen A. Smith, Ryan Ruocco Show. Jerome, interesting target goal for Eli Manning set out by their new quarterbacks coach, Danny Langsdorf, who has challenged Eli to complete 70% of his passes this year. It has not been done many times in this league. Alex Smith, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Sammy Bowe, Ken Anderson, Drew Brees. That's it in the history of the league. Do you think, you've watched Eli a long time, he's going to be in a different offense this year. Could you see Eli actually achieving that goal?
I see him possibly achieving it, but not year one of the new offense. I think, this is a totally new system that he's going into. He's never played in a West Coast system. Going back to college and the high school. So this is something that is 100% new to him. And there's some intricacies that's involved in that offense that it takes a while for you to come in and understand it. So I don't see that being the case this year. I think it's a good goal to have, but I think it's a bit unrealistic.
What do you think of Johnny Manziel's offseason, Jerome?
You know what? The problem I had with Johnny Manziel's offseason is that it was so public. I mean, he's not the first guy that enjoyed himself going out. He won't be the last guy. The problem is with social media, you're really documenting every day kind of your life, so to speak. He's being put under the microscope. I thought that was unfair. But it's the nature of the beast. And with that being said, he's got to understand what comes with it, and he's got to manage that. And I think he did a poor job of managing it once he understood that it was going to take on a life of its own.
Jerome, how about this part of it? Because if he struggles, people are going to look at him and say, oh, it's the partying. Oh, that's why he is. And, sometimes that's unfair because what you do with your free time, you do with your free time. But on the other hand, I know some athletes who, they don't drink because their bodies are their jobs, and they know it affects their bodies, or they won't drink in season, or maybe they'll just have a glass of wine here or there. Hey, what do you think the culture is as far as athletes and alcohol? Like, how many athletes do you know? How many players in the NFL did you know that were like, look, I'm not touching this stuff in season?
Zero. Zero.
So they all would touch the stuff somewhat.
Did that.
Okay.
I mean, you have a drink or something like that. You know, you maybe there's all the guys get together and go out on a Thursday night, or guys go bowling and stuff like that. I mean, we did a lot of things together as groups, and so sure you have a drink or something like that. But obviously you didn't do anything stupid and nothing in excess. But the idea of I'm not going to have a drink, I don't think that's realistic. I think you have some extreme cases where guys do that, but I don't think that's going to impact your play on the football field, whether or not you had a drink on Wednesday or Thursday and you go out there and play. So I don't believe in that. I think that will be the scapegoat. I think if Johnny Manziel doesn't play well, it's unfortunate because I don't think that's going to impact his play at all. What he gets out of his game is going to be a direct impact of what he puts in the game. And so if he studies and works his butt off, then he'll be fine and he'll be successful. It's just a matter of is he willing to do that? Will he commit himself during this football season to getting better every single day? And there's a big piece of this puzzle too. All the players around him. The quarterback is the one player that if your players around you don't support you, you're not going to have success.
Jerome, good stuff. Appreciate the perspective. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it, guys.
You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.
My good friend, John Flaherty, who I was doing Yankees pre- and post-game with yesterday, and when we saw Tulowitzki in the stands, we both kind of looked at each other. John, do you think there's something disrespectful to the Rockies about Tulowitzki being there yesterday at Yankee Stadium?
You know what, Ryan? I don't know if I would go as far as to say it's disrespectful, but it just didn't look right. I mean, we kind of looked at each other and said it just looked strange seeing a star player sitting in the legend seats when his team, I think they were in Pittsburgh. Is that right?
Yeah, they were in Colorado playing Pittsburgh. Yeah,
in Colorado playing Pittsburgh. So the whole thing just looked a little awkward to me, and it actually reminded me. I had an old teammate who was on the disabled list, and we were in Cleveland, and he came into the clubhouse and got some treatment, and then he left and went to a concert across the street while we were playing a game against Cleveland Indians. And to say the least, when you found out about it as a teammate, you weren't real happy about it, and we let him know about that is not something that should be done. Obviously, Tulowitzki is a star player, so he's going to get a little leniency on this one. But, why don't you go up to David Cohn's suite, and sit in the background and don't really have the big profile of sitting out in the stands. But, it is what it is.
I was just looking at it, John. It's Don LaGreca. How are you? I sabotaged Ryan's show, and I'll apologize to him later. I'll send him flowers.
We're going to fight.
I'm just coming off vacation, so maybe it's the euphoria of just watching sports for sports' sake and then coming back to sports radio and everything's got to be a soap opera. It's an unusual set of circumstances, right, John? I mean, you grew up as a fan of baseball. It's Derek Jeter's last season as a Yankee. He saw an opportunity to see Derek Jeter. How often during the course of a baseball season can you watch your idol play? All right, maybe it came at the expense of watching a couple of innings of Rockies Pirates, but why can't we celebrate the fact that he's still a fan? He was there because he loves Derek Jeter. All we do is report stories now. Ball players don't watch other games. They don't know the history of the game. They don't care about the sport in which they play, that it's only just a business. Why can't we look at it the positive of it was an opportunity for him to see his idol play baseball?
You can, Don, and then obviously you're on vacation. You're shot out of a cannon, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's built up.
Beautiful. I mean, you can, and that is one of the nicest parts about it is this guy is still a fan. He's a big Jeter fan, and he wanted to go to Yankee Stadium, and that I get all that. That's all fantastic. I just know from my perspective, if my organization and I'm on the disabled list is playing a game somewhere, when you're on the DL, you almost feel like you're not even part of the team. Like you want to keep a low profile, and then when you get back to playing, obviously you can kind of do whatever you want to do. But it just didn't look right to me. But when you explain it that way, it actually sounds refreshing. This guy is still a fan. He wanted to see his favorite player. But if I was a member of the Rockies organization and maybe some of their teammates, I'd be thinking maybe a little bit differently.
Yeah, if you were a teammate of his, would it bother you, John?
It would, yeah. And just for the fact that, you know what, they're having a tough year, and their star player is out, obviously, and he's going to get treated so differently. That's just the nature of the beast. When you're a star, you get to do things that, the 25th guy in the club isn't allowed to do. But, with all that being said, if I was out there competing and kind of grinding it out and, things aren't going well and I see somebody hanging in the legend seats watching a baseball game while I'm out there, trying to get a W, it wouldn't sit right with me.
I'm talking with John Flaherty on the Lexus of Route 10 Celebrity Hotline, who I was able to do pre and post with yesterday on the Yes Network for the Yankees' loss to the Blue Jays. John, how much of a missed opportunity do you think that was? I know overall 7-3 on the homestand. You're just a game out of the second wild card spot, but you won 7 of the first 8 and were in the last 2. Did it feel like a big missed opportunity?
I think yesterday did, Ryan, and then just for the fact the way the Yankees kind of fought back, they're swinging the bats a little bit better, and then you throw on top of that, you have Betances in there late, you have Robertson in there late. Those are the guys who have been fantastic for you all year long. And they kind of had not a rough afternoon, but things just didn't go right for them, and you end up losing a tight ball game and a close game when the formula for success is get Betances and Robertson in the game, and you feel pretty good about it. So, I think big picture 7-3 is nice, but, that was a game yesterday against, a division rival that you're battling for a wild card spot, AL East spot with. That's one that you're getting on the plane to Texas yesterday saying we really should have won that game.
Of all the new acquisitions and young pitchers that have had to patchwork this rotation and really have done a nice job, who's the one that stands out most to you?
I mean, obviously the McCarthy, acquisition has been fantastic so far, but I really like this Shane Green kid, and he threw yesterday and it wasn't his best afternoon, but, we talked about it on the show. He's a guy that 4 starts in, when he has really good stuff, he could be dominant. When he's got his average stuff or not great, he still finds a way to compete. And you like that about a young kid. He doesn't look scared. He's got an above average slider, good movement on his fastball, and he competes. And I think that's the biggest hurdle for young kids when they get to the big leagues. And he's pitching in a pennant race, and he hasn't flinched yet. So I like that kid.
You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM. You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.
Don, you have something to say about this? Don LaGreca's just barging into the studio.
I just want to say it's a terrible analogy.
Why is it a terrible analogy?
Because it's in New York. Yes, it would be disrespectful for you to go see Francesa if Stephen A. Smith is in New York and Francesa's in New York.
Right.
But if you're out in Los Angeles and you've got somebody that you worshipped and idolized in the sports business that was doing a show up against Stephen A. Smith, you wouldn't go and see that guy do his show if it's 3,000 miles away?
You know what? I not in a place where I could be seen. Not if it was on some kind of a competitor. If it was on an ESPN affiliate, if it was Kellerman's show, sure. That's a friend. Why not? But
this is an unusual set of circumstances. The last caller said it right. He idolizes Derek Jeter. How often do you have a chance as a Major League Baseball player to go see your idol play live? They don't play each other during the course of the year. It's Derek Jeter's last season. He's in the area. It's only a couple of hours away. He's got a chance to actually see Derek Jeter play in Yankee Stadium this last year. A very unusual set of circumstances he decided to take advantage of.
Look, it warms
Why can't we
my heart.
celebrate something that's cool?
It is cool.
Rendon we killed because he didn't watch the All-Star game because he thought it was boring, and baseball players don't care about their own sport, and they don't follow the sport other than what they care about themselves. Finally, as a guy that's celebrating the actual sport, celebrating one of the great players of all time, and we're going to find some negative.
No.
Yankees and Rockies have no rivalry. He wasn't going to get on a plane and fly 2,000 miles away to see his team play. It was a rare opportunity. It's something that should be actually cool.
It is cool.
Why is there drama with everything?
It is cool, and it is endearing, but I'll tell you why there's drama. And this is what he has to be aware of. He has public comments that he has made where he is flirting with the idea of being a New York Yankee. He has talked about how cool it would be to be the guy who replaces Derek Jeter and has openly acknowledged that he has talked with Rocky's management about potentially moving him.
But he has no control of where he gets moved.
But Don, it's one thing if he is Mr. Rocky and nobody has any doubt about him being there for the rest of his career, not going anywhere, and then he goes and watches the Yankees. Instead, what it looks like is, oh my gosh, this guy, he already cares about the Yankees more than our team. To that fan base and that organization, I think it's disrespectful given the circumstances that surround him right now and the context that we do have. He wants to go to the game. I do find it endearing. I really do, as someone who loves Derek Jeter himself. But go to the game without your face being seen because it's disrespectful to your organization. It looks like you already have one foot out the door.
But he's going to get traded. He's not a free agent. It's not like when Darryl Strawberry was a free agent during the '88 playoffs writing a ghost column talking about how he'd love one day to play for the Los Angeles Dodgers, then becomes a free agent and signs with the Dodgers. If the Mets make a better offer, if another team makes a better offer, he's going to end up getting traded there.
Yeah, but
it's not like he's a free agent.
Yeah,
he can't control where he ends up getting traded.
He's not a free agent, and it would look worse if it was the last year of his contract and he was already doing this, sure. But he is someone who has acknowledged that he has gone in and talked to Rocky's management about this.
If Eli was hurt and the Mets were in Arizona taking on the Cardinals, and Eli was hurt back here in New York, and the Colts came to New York to play the Jets at MetLife Stadium, don't you think Eli Manning would be at the game?
Yeah, it's his brother.
But it's the same circumstance if this was his idol.
But let me tell you something.
It's someplace he wanted to be. Would he be being disrespectful to the Giants?
If the Giants are playing at the same time, you're darn right that's disrespectful.
Well, they wouldn't be playing at the same time.
Well,
and I don't think the Rockies were playing at the
okay.
same time because the game was in Colorado, so I'm sure there was a time difference.
No, the games were overlapping, though.
You are listening to the best of the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Ruocco Show on ESPNNewYork.com. Hear them weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on ESPN New York 98.7 FM.